Good morning. This is the sixth week of the class Science Humanity. My name is once again, Jaeweon Cho. Always welcome to the question and comment through email, or you can leave a message at the app of our Street Smart. Okay, good morning. Thank you for your good morning message. And then this week, this is the first the class of this week with the topic of modernity, human nature. So we've been discussing in many different ways, but the same topic of the human and the society. So first we initiate our class with the topic of fact and truth. So it's nothing but about the theme about the human itself. So what we are the human who would like to contribute to other persons. Otherwise, we are not never happy at all. So we try to help other persons through communication, through care. So we discussed already about the care. So that's why we are human, because we care each other, family, and other person, even stranger of the society. So we also concern other persons to actualize our deeds. It is for our society. That's the way we contribute to our society, for the world, in nature, with the base of the complexity we discussed already under the topic of nature. And then we have a society. So between us, we contribute to other persons. We select sometimes something out of the other options. So we communicate each other. That's why we have a society. So this week we have themes, subject matter, right? Dominating theme of society and human. What do you think? What's the major essence? Where's the essence correspond to these two, society and human? What's the essence to this society and the human? So which way do you think a society try to reveal itself and prove itself as a society? Through whatever communication, any kinds of connectivity between member of the society, even small and large. So the global types of super connected society, whatever, under digital society. So do you think how society try to complete itself through what? And other questions with human. So which way the human do you think is try to be or try to prove itself through what? So I believe, I'm not sure you agree or not, but you may have a different opinion, but I believe, I trust, I think society try to survive. That's the only one, and not the only one, some major priority with the society, for the society, over society. How about the human? Society survivor. So without survival, society disappear. So a lot of society, a lot of country may disappear. How about the human? Human also try to survive, but other things. So human try to obtain, which is happiness. So human being, so human nature, try to be happy. How human can be happy? Please ask yourself how you become happy today or right now. How can you be happy? Okay, think about. So that's the most important things. So between human, we have a society, of course. So a society survive. Society survive, should survive, will survive under certain condition. But society consisting in human try to be happy. Otherwise, human frustrated, come up in desperate despair. So human despair actually under that conditions. Human should be happy. So how or what brings the human happiness? So first things with that happiness issues, the human know himself or herself, itself. So the secondary, more preferentially, human try to be help to other persons. Otherwise, the human never be happy. So between family, between friends, between husband and wife and the spouse, between spouse, so they try to be helpful to other persons. As a teacher, for me, try to be helpful with this topic about the science or humanity. I'd like to be happy. So that's my personal happiness. So to contribute to students like you in UNIST. So that's my responsibility as well as my happiness goals to help the students to be something in the future. So that's the most important topics, society and human. So first class of this the semester with the topic of science or humanity. So we bring different theme and topics, but only come up with very important two different themes. First one, so we consist in society, and second one, we are human. Okay, so first one, modernity. So we've been told, or so we believe we are living in a society of modernity. So first two questions under these two are the topics we are going to discuss today in this class: society and human and modernity. Society and human and modernity. The first two questions to you is: Are we actually in modern society? What is modernity? Okay, that's the first question from me to you. How do you answer to that question? What is modern? What is modernity? The second question is, what is human nature? What is human nature? As I told you, even if we are not able to or not aware of the nature of a human being, we still human, of course. So we try to be happy through being helpful to other persons in a society. Then we communicate each other with information to bring different information you believe is very important, which we already define as truth. So truth is different fact, and truth is different the knowledge and concept. Of course, we believe it is. So we try to deliver or transfer those information through information with the communication in a society to help, right? To help other persons. So that's our nature as a human. Try to be happy. So without happiness, so what is motivation of our living in everyday lives? And society should survive. So that's the two different things. With that, modernity, the first question, modernity. What is modernity? Okay, so I bring this book written by Bruno Latour. He is the French anthropologist. He's of course to some portion he is philosopher. He started with the major of a sociologist that he became sometime after journey into the African tribe types of a village to study their distinct character. And then he became an anthropologist. Do you know Bruno Latour? So he is still hot. He's still hot. So we have many famous, the living legendary person in this world. From MIT, we have Media Lab and Noam Chomsky, right? So in linguist type and psychologist, but we have so Tesla persons, Microsoft, Bill Gates, and many living legendary person, right? So here in the society, we are living in still, in digital society especially, but we have a hot person in anthropologist named Bruno Latour. Bruno Latour is about 72 years old. The French is still living in Paris. So he visited Korea a couple of times, I believe, to get some kind of prize from Korean society in anthropologist. So he wrote many different books. So if you're interested, so our library has a few books. So one of those is We Have Never Been Modern. We Have Never Been Modern in 1993. So between 1989 and 1990, we already discussed about some kind of the boundary between analog and digital society through WWW, GIS, and the collapse of the Soviet Unions, and collapse of the war of ideology in Berlin. So a lot of things actually happened in that era. So I'm not sure why, but couple of regions, end of centuries, beginning of new centuries. I'm not sure exactly, but a lot of philosophers and even scientists and engineers, of course, and business person. So it is. So Bruno Latour mentions. So modernity can be defined some kind of the concept having two different things. Modernity, 근대화, 현대화. So two different things. First thing is translation. Second thing's purification. What's the translations? So we already discussed baseball game the last week to bring our deep understanding of nature with the concept of complexity. So who decide the safe base hit out of hitting against the pitcher in a game? It was complexity of nature. So we have a nature who decided the survivor of a person, survivor of a species and society and country. But the human is a human. Human has a pride of a superior species. So being survived out of a competition in nature, out of other species. So dinosaurs extinct, are already extinct. The human exists still as one species. We have only one species, so which is Homo sapiens. So if you look at the butterfly, if you look at birds, if you look at the lions and bears, they come together, living together with a very different species. They have still many different species, but only human has only one species, which is Homo sapiens. Long time ago, we have Homo erectus, Homo Neanderthal. Excuse me. But human right now has only one species, human. So someone said other, such as Neanderthal, went extinct due to their language systems, language structure, or they believe they have a too big the brain. Too big is can sometimes demerit, or many different anthropologists, especially biological anthropologists mention or believe Neanderthal and other species of human went extinct from the physical and climate change, so collapse of the comet into the earth. So a lot of things actually can be interpreted, but come up with one right now is the fact. We are survivor, right? We are survivor as Homo sapiens. So then we are trying to interpret the world we are living in through modernity concept. So Bruno Latour mentions, once again, two different things. First one, translations and purification. Whenever we experience a certain phenomena, a certain event, a certain fact, so we have a habit to interpret or divide those into two different axes, two different components. So that's our habit from the concept of modernity. If we are a modern person, if we are not the primitive persons or pre-modern society, if we are modern, then we have a capability to separate those phenomena, in fact, into two different axes. The first, nature. Second one is human. So we have a tendency, or we have a willingness to separate everything into certain things in nature, in human, separately. Okay, whatever that is, we have a superpower to separate those into nature and human. Okay, for examples, coronavirus. So we have a pandemic situation, pandemic event, pandemic disastrous event from the corona, the pandemic situations. Then we are human, living in a modern society. Then we are going to, or we prefer to separate or translate into two different things, and to be projected into the screen, the two different screens. The first one, nature. Second one, the human. So then with the coronavirus, once again, we believe certain portion of coronavirus pandemic and problematics can be translated into nature axis. And also we, as opposed to nature, so we would like to translate pandemic situations, problematic situations into human screen. So then we have two different results. One nature, the other one is human. Okay, so what do you think? What do you think? That's the character of human nature under the modern society, as the Bruno Latour mentioned. And then we confuse about two different things. Once we separate, and then we confused. Why? I'm not sure why we are to be confused after separation or translating, but we have that tendency. So that's the wrong traditional history, traditional happening with the society of modernity. What do you think? If I ask you climate change, for example, another example, climate emergency, climate disaster. So you may bring some kind of interpretation or analysis in terms of nature, periodic, the period can bring us the climate change. Some other persons, our consumption of carbon-based fuel, fossil fuel, result in this the climate change disaster. Someone actually analyzed through scientific experiment and simulations to bring many different facts to affect the climate emergency through nature, and then with the natural law, natural simulations, and so on and so forth. But the other person actually bring different interpretations with respect to human activity, anthropogenic contribution to climate change. So name it, and we have different interpretations. So we are human in a modern society. That's the character of human as a modern society. So we always separate and translate into two different screens, two different the representations in terms of nature and the human. Okay, and then we confused why we have two different things. Why we have this alienated and separated effect, separated interpretation, and then we try to combine into one result and conclusions. That's the bad habit, I believe. But we are human in societal modernity, as Bruno Latour stressed. So we have two different things to be modern. First one, according to Bruno Latour, translation, and second one, so we have to purify. We have to purify because we are confused from nature against the human against the nature. We are confused because sometimes we observe certain things without any segregation, without separation between nature and human. So we feel that way sometimes. We perceive that way. We understand that way. There is no separation between the nature and human. Please look at the wood and tree. So we are part of a tree. We are part of an atmosphere. We are part of fertilizer through circulation of nitrogen from our feces, or some kind of the phosphorus from some different forms of phosphorus from our urine, transported into the tree as a fertilizer. We already discussed this one through the concept of similarity, right? So movement and analogy. So from the book of Michel Foucault, right? So I already introduced to you. So we perceive connectivity, connection to the all living things, even to non-living things as well. So that's why I brought example of baseball game. Baseball game, who decided to save hit? That's the nature we bring. Nature can be defined, and that way last week we already discussed complexity. So nature cannot be understood against the nature, against the human and society. There is no segregation. There is no alienations. There's no separation in concept between nature and human, but we still analyze the phenomena, event, fact into, through scientific way, many different components. The component we would like to put and place area of nature or area of human. Even science, so if you analyze DNA and RNA, genetic research, so that then you interpret those results from your PCR, for example, multiplied DNA code and strain, then we interpret as one of a component in nature as opposed to component of the human. Okay, so that's the our kind of paradox. So we have a one theory, but when we apply this theory to the science, it works sometimes, but contradictory to other interpretation by another science. So we are confused, then we have to purify. So that's why two different things from Bruno Latour. The first one, translation through separation into the screen of nature, screen of the human. Then we are going to purify how we combine everything into one. After combining, we have one. Before translation, we have one. Compared to different things, they are not the same. So we have a paradox of those things. That's the modern society. He believed, Bruno Latour believed as science anthropologist. So this is not easy. I believe this is absolutely not easy. I fully understand, but try to be okay. Try to be person who understand our habit, because we have to what? Survive. So in this way, the people being surviving as a Homo sapiens. So Bruno Latour. So we have to understand this one. Why? We have to survive. We have to survive. So we are discussing this one. Extend this discussion. So then, so there are two different poles. Nature pole, the human pole. Nature pole and human pole. So we have a certain the phenomena, situations and problem in our society at this point, and then we are going to translate into screen of nature or screen of the human. Okay, so that's the habit of humankind in an era of modernity, and how we actually purify. So the first things we accept it. So that's the human. The human has a reason. Human has some kind of a brain or capability to separate and analyze, and then we can combine whatever that is. Even if it is not desirable, then we have a capability. But there are many different ways suggested by our ancestors and colleagues and peers for purification. Purification means to compensate, make up for our separation into two different poles, right? So first things, there are a couple of examples. The first things, so we accept it. So there is no other alternative. There is no way. We are human. So human have a tendency or preference to separate everything into concept of nature, concept of human. Someone mentioned that's not desirable, but we are human still. So human has a very good philosophy to consider us as a human being. So a long time ago, primitive or very long time ago, under under kind of a nature dominant era, nature dominant times. So human are very difficult. What at that time human were difficult to consider him as a human, right? But after industrial revolutions, after Renaissance, the people recognize her or him to be a human being. So then they became to have pride as a human. Human is very important right now from that time. And then we as a human became to have habit to separate everything into some kind of our antagonist. So opposing giant, which is nature. And then we try to translate into something very important for us as a human. You know what I'm saying? So then we accept it. And then here we have very famous the physicist, philosopher, Immanuel Kant. So he summarized everything in his times, from concept of knowledge, from the previous persons. So he bring importance, significance of the pure reason as opposed to object, from nature. Okay, we have a reason from human side. We have a object from nature. So if you read the Critiques of Pure Reasons written by Immanuel Kant, so every chapter, every sections dealing with some kind of a object as opposed to subject, some kind of a reason, some kind of things to be reasoned. So that's the format of his book, The Pure Reason. And then Hegel, as a students of Kant, so not the direct students, but Hegel, of course, read Kant's book and interpret different way. He bring the spirit for the first time. So when you read the Kant book, there is no terminology of a spirit and soul. There are soul, but the spirit is not that much stressed by Kant's in his book of Critiques of Pure Reason. Hegel, importance of that. Hegel actually introduced the material types of that. Even for the material matter, so he tried to discuss about the phenomenological spirit. So he brings the concept of contradictions. So he evolved in a philosophical concept. So he tried to his philosophy to purify. You know what I'm saying? So in modern times, we separate to contaminate our world through two different pores. 이게 무슨 말이냐? Let me summarize in Korean. So this is very important, I believe, so to help you understand better. 지금 우리 수업이 사실 과학인문학이잖아요. 그래서 과학과 사람의 관계를 어떻게 이해해 가느냐, 첫 시간부터 계속 해오고 있는 거죠. 그 중에 이제 이번 주가 그 근대화, 현대애라는 것, 인간이 사람이 사람으로서 굉장히 인간이 존엄하다라는 것을 느끼게 되면서 굉장히 좋은 면도 많이 생겼지만 또 하나 이제 우리가 어쩔 수 없이 가지고 있는 한계 같은 게 있다라고 브루노 라투르라는 인류학자가 얘기를 한 거죠. 그 가장 큰 게 뭐냐면 우리는 이러한 그 습성이 있는데 이게 이제 현대의 특징이라는 겁니다. 사람의. 그게 뭐죠? 그게 모든 거를 자연, 사람 이렇게 구별하는 습관이 있다라는 거죠. 이게 뭐 1780년 정도, 한 18세기 정도부터 이게 계속해서 반복되고 있는 사항이라는 거죠. 우리가 뭔가 기후변화가 생기든 코로나가 생기든 뭐 빈익부, 부익부 뭐 이런 문제가 생겼을 때마다 우리는 이것을 사람의 문제, 경제의 문제, 돈의 문제, 물질의 문제, 그다음에 기후변화가 와도 기후라는 게 뭔가 있는 것처럼, 그러니까 우리하고 분리되어서 있는 것처럼, object죠. 대상이 분리되어 있는 것처럼 느끼고 있다는 거죠. 그걸 또 분석하고 이것에 가장 위력을 발휘하는 게 사이언스죠. 과학이죠. 굉장히 분리해서 해석하는데 엄청난 능력을 발휘하고 있는 거죠. 이 다음에 그것을 하나로 이렇게 합쳐서 해석하려고 하는 그런 능력도 뛰어나죠. 이 과정을 뭐라고 한다고요? 그것을 purification, 정화한다라고 해석을 했는 거죠. 그럼 어떻게 정화하느냐라는 것들에 대해서 지금 좀 얘기합니다. Once again, so we are human in a modern society as a human being. So we take a pride of the human dignity in a society of modernity. So then we try to interpret everything into two different screen and different pore to be separate into that, so which are nature and human. And then we contaminate our thinking because we are separated. We are separate. Separation is not preferred procedure in thinking, in making the concept to come up with some kind of a knowledge and idea finally into some kind of a conclusions, so to be happy, to contribute to others, and then we have to purify. So Immanuel Kant tried to accept those things using reasons and separate object, but Hegel use a different way with the concept of contradictions. And Habermas, Wilhelm Habermas, a French sociologist, he, in his book, he mentioned the concept of incommensurability. So even if we have those situations cannot be separated at all. So this is another difficult things to understand. If you read Wilhelm Habermas' book in sociologist, it is another obstacles to understand. Okay, so I think that this is beyond range of scope in this class, but please understand. So in the postmodernism's psychologists and sociologists, they try to purify through making infinitesimally the small component. With that, we cannot distinguish in terms of nature and human. That's the purification. So when you read Bruno Latour's books, the postmodernism may be one of the solving strategy to overcome modernity, contaminated from translation and the separations. The postmodern art, postmodern scientific research. For example, DNA. When you look at the DNA, can you distinguish between nature concept and human concept? When you see nanotechnology, when you see nanotechnology, when you see biotechnology, when you see a very small the particle, even below atom size, can you distinguish the human and as opposed to nature? No, right? No. So that's through that the concept of the postmodernisms, so we cannot distinguish at all, which is hyper incommensurability. Hyper incommensurability. Okay, that's the essence of his book titled "We Have Never Been Modern." So through postmodernism, so we are living in postmodernism probably, but postmodernism is one effort to overcome and to purify the world contaminated with the modernism concept to be translated into two different poles, nature and human. So that's the message from him. Okay, so let's practice. Even if we are not fully aware of this, the modernism types of the approach. Okay, so let me give you this the first participations to you through app of the Street Smart. Give me your interpretation of coronavirus in terms of purification. So, for examples, between coronavirus, between nature and human, what do you think? Which percentage actually correspond to nature as opposed to the human? 80%. 20% nature, 20% the human. Right now we have a problem. We have a pandemic situations, pandemic disaster, right? So do you think which percentage of this problem and event under this pandemic come from nature? So please write down the first the percentage. Second one, you believe this much actually resulted from human activity or human anthropogenic contributions. Please, okay, please.